After being released on Netflix, the eagerly anticipated Marilyn Monroe movie, Blonde, has encountered a tsunami of criticism and backlash. But why? Well, first, here's a little recap if you haven't yet seen it. Spoilers ahead. In Blonde, Ana de Armas plays Marilyn, and Bobby Cannavale and Adrian Brody appear as Marilyn's husband, Joe DiMaggio, and Arthur Miller. Now, the film is based on Joyce Carol Oates' book of the same name, which is meant to be a fictionalized account of Marilyn Monroe's life. Stay tuned to find out why the film is receiving major backlash. First up, the new Netflix film Blonde has been receiving major backlash, and here's why. Blonde, a new film starring Ana de Armas, has generated some debate ever since it was released on Netflix. The movie, which is directed by Andrew Dominik and is based on a book by Joyce Carol Oates, follows Marilyn Monroe from her early days to her tragic passing. Only a few days after it started streaming, the dramatized biopic quickly started moving up the streaming charts, and it presently holds the top spot among the top 10 movies on Netflix in several nations around the globe. Nevertheless, despite the film's popularity, some viewers have criticized it on social media for its violent depiction of Monroe. One person writes, "Netflix's Blonde is disgusting. Even though it is a fabricated story, the movie can still be made with some care, and this movie is so dark and gory because of Marilyn Monroe's emotional detachment. In fact, this is so exploitive that it's alarming." Now, the movie may have received a 14-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival, but reviewers and moviegoers are now labeling it sexist, cruel, and one of the most despicable movies possibly ever made. Particularly disturbing sequences, including ones that depict an abortion and assault, have drawn major criticism. Another viewer shared their thoughts on the film, writing, "I had the unfortunate misfortune of watching Blonde on Netflix last night, and let me tell you, the movie is so anti-abortion, so misogynistic, and so exploitive." Another viewer said, "Blonde is an opportunistic, misogynistic, borderline torturous film that berates an already miserable figure." Opens in new tab. De Armas is a good actress, but the brutal storyline and the direction's lack of concentration detract from her presence. It was a terrible experience and horrible to witness. On the other hand, several spectators expressed their appreciation for the film, and in particular, de Armas' strong performance. One reader comments, "Ana de Armas did a fantastic performance." Others asserted that it was true to Oates' book. Another viewer's comment claiming that the film is very true to the book and follows pretty to the point. Furthermore, the film garnered a 5-star rating from various websites, including Total Film, which called it uncomfortable viewing but also captivating, untamed cinema that will spark dialogue and divide viewpoints. Whatever your opinion of Netflix's Blonde may be, it's undoubtedly a topic of discussion. Now, following the onslaught of backlash, Blonde's director, Andrew Dominik, replied to the criticism. However, funnily enough, the viewer's outrage has increased as a result of his disregard of the criticism. Screen Daily was told by Dominik in February 2022, "It's a challenging film. It is the audience's issue if they don't like it." However, it should be emphasized that he also used some less than polite terms to express how angry he was over the backlash. Following the remarks, people criticized Dominik for creating a movie that seemed to reflect his preferences, rather than the actual truth of the late star's life. Speaking of Monroe, let's take a look at some dark facts surrounding her life. Without a doubt, one of the most recognizable and well-known figures of the 20th century is Marilyn Monroe. She had singing and acting talent. She was born in 1926 and had a challenging upbringing. You might be surprised to learn that Marilyn never received an Academy Award despite being honored today. She received poor salary since, during her lifetime, many people did not consider her to be talented. She also endured significant hardships during her life, many of which people are probably completely ignorant of. So we thought it was only fitting to delve into some of the dark facts surrounding Marilyn. First up, she was sent to various foster homes by her own mother. Monroe did not have the good life from the beginning. Marilyn was placed in a foster home by her mentally ill mother, and because of this, Monroe's mother spent most of her time in mental hospitals. Monroe was first placed in an evangelical Christian home. From there, Albert and Ida Bolender look after Monroe in Hawthorne. She spent 6 months with them. On the weekends, her mother would come see her. When Marilyn acquired a little house in Hollywood in 1934, she spent a brief period living with her mother, but her mother was admitted to the Metropolitan State Hospital, so this stay was brief. Now, Gladys Baker, Marilyn's mother, is largely unknown since her agent didn't want anyone to know about her. Marilyn was warned not to discuss her institutionalized mother once she became successful in Hollywood, because it would harm her reputation. Instead, she was expected to respond that her mother was deceased if questioned. She also had a stutter, and how she got it is truly sad. As time passed, Monroe's housing situation continued to change. She spent roughly 16 months with one family, during which time she suffered sexual assault. She became reclusive, frightened, and even stuttered as a result of the event. In 1935, Monroe moved and lived with a different family. 2 families later, she was put to a Los Angeles orphanage, and Monroe did not enjoy her life there, sadly because she felt abandoned. Her foster mother was appointed as her legal guardian, and her early life's experiences inspired her to pursue acting. She used to be taken to the movies to get her out of the foster homes, and she cherished the idea of performing because it allowed her to escape her reality. Now, this brings us back to our next fact. She married young simply to avoid being sent back to the orphanage. When Monroe was 16 years old, she wed Jim Doherty, who would become her first husband. To avoid going back to the foster family, she took this action. 4 years were spent in her first marriage, and Monroe was staying with a foster family who was moving to West Virginia. Monroe married James Doherty, a man who was 4 years her senior, because she did not want to return to being raised in foster care. Also, what many may be unaware of, she was pretty hard to work with. Once she achieved success, Monroe was challenging to collaborate with. Monroe was unpredictable, according to those with whom she worked closely. She would be late for shots and have her lines forgotten. Everyone was made to wait for Monroe, and her emotional state was also cited as contributing to her recent erratic behavior. The productions lost thousands of dollars as a result of her constant absenteeism and tardiness, and she was let go from this play. She never made it to another set since she continued to act in the same way. In front of the camera, Monroe would stutter and mumble her lines, despite her success in Hollywood. And then Monroe struggled with insecurity and felt exposed. Without her acting coach's approval, she could not move forward with her acting jobs. Now, this is what really went down after the iconic shot of her skirt blowing up was taken. Remember that iconic image of Marilyn, radiant and gorgeous, standing on a subway grate with her skirt blowing up around her legs? She appears flawless, and she also exudes joy. However, what she paid for the shot was unexpected. Marilyn was filming a scene on location in New York City while she was portraying the girl in Billy Wilder's The 7-Year Itch. During the filming, thousands of spectators cheered and applauded as the film crew worked. Marilyn DiMaggio's husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, was one of those spectators, and he was very unhappy. Strong movie lights gleamed through the 2 sets of panties Marilyn had worn for modesty as DiMaggio, a devout Catholic, watched in anger. He felt something of his was on display, which very much enraged him. Following the scene shooting, DiMaggio and Marilyn returned to the St. Regis Hotel, where they got into a brawl so heated that hotel staff were worried and called security, fearing someone was getting gravely harmed. And lastly, her acting career suffered because she refused advances by men in the business. Previously, Monroe utilized favors to secure some of her acting assignments. The majority of studio executives would exploit that to cast her in their films. She had had enough and rejected one CEO who wanted her to sign a contract only after they had an intimate relationship. She declined him, and the studio terminated her employment. Despite her attractiveness and glitzy lifestyle, Monroe was bankrupt in 1949. To acquire some money, she was compelled to take some explicit images. And there you have it, everything you need to know about the new movie, Blonde, that is based on the late great Marilyn Monroe, and the endless backlash the film has been receiving. Now, make sure to let us know your thoughts and comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching.